The night was quiet, too quiet, the kind of silence that hums beneath your skin, heavy and watchful. A thin ribbon of asphalt cut through the California countryside, gleaming faintly under the silver wash of a half-moon. Keanu Reeves gripped the steering wheel of his black '69 Mustang, the soft growl of the engine blending with the whispering wind. He wasn't heading anywhere in particular. Sometimes, when the world grew too loud, he drove, letting the road decide where his thoughts might end. The rain had started only minutes ago, a fine mist that now thickened into steady sheets, blurring the edges of the world into watercolor shadows. Through the rhythmic sweep of the wipers, the night unfolded like an old film reel, slow, grainy, melancholic. He had always loved the sound of rain. It carried a kind of honesty that people rarely did, cleansing, unfiltered, pure. Yet tonight, there was something else hidden within the rain's whisper. Something soft. Something alive. Keanu slowed the car, leaning forward. Through the glass, his headlights caught a flicker of movement on the roadside, a small, trembling figure darting across the slick pavement. He hit the brakes, tires hissing against the wet road, heart lurching in his chest. The creature froze mid-run, bathed in the pale beam of the headlights. A dog, soaked to the bone, ribs faintly visible, eyes wide with fear. For a heartbeat, time seemed to hold its breath. Then, as if surrendering to exhaustion, the dog collapsed right there in the mud. Keanu's instincts moved before his mind could. He threw open the door, stepping into the cold rain. The downpour hit him hard, sharp, biting, but he didn't care. Kneeling beside the trembling animal, he whispered softly, "Hey, hey, it's okay, buddy." The dog flinched but didn't move away. Its fur was matted, a mix of white and brown beneath layers of dirt. Keanu removed his jacket and wrapped it gently around the animal, feeling the fragile rise and fall of its ribs. The creature let out a faint whimper, a sound so small yet piercing that it cracked something deep inside him, a memory, a grief, maybe both. As he lifted the dog into his arms, its eyes met his for just a moment. There was fear there, yes, but also trust. The kind of trust that only the broken know how to give. Inside the car, he laid the dog on the passenger seat, cranking up the heat. The smell of wet fur filled the cabin, mingling with a faint scent of gasoline and leather. Keanu ran his fingers gently over the dog's neck, finding a torn collar dangling by a thread. A small tag still clung to it, half-scratched but legible enough to read, "Rust." The rest was gone. Below it, the faint outline of an address, half-smudged, half-erased by time and weather. He turned the tag over in his palm, squinting through the faint glow of the dashboard lights. Somewhere out there, someone was missing this dog. But something in his gut whispered that this was no ordinary lost pet story. There was weight in the air, a feeling that this night had chosen him for a reason. He exhaled deeply, leaning back against the seat as the wipers struggled against the rain. The dog shifted, resting its head on the folded jacket, breathing shallow but steady. Keanu glanced at the road ahead, a long, winding stretch disappearing into darkness. "You've been through something, haven't you?" he murmured. The dog's tail twitched faintly, as if in reply. A soft, tired smile crossed his face. "Guess we both have." He looked down again at the broken tag, tracing the half-faded letters. That address, or what was left of it, felt like a breadcrumb left by fate. He didn't know where it led, but something deep within told him to follow. As he started the car again, the rain softened, the night growing strangely still. The headlights cut through the mist like a path only he could see. For a moment, Keanu felt the strange pull of destiny, subtle but certain, like an invisible thread connecting him, the dog, and whatever waited beyond the next bend. Maybe it was madness, or maybe it was grace. But as the car rolled forward and the sound of the engine echoed through the lonely hills, Keanu Reeves knew one thing for sure. This wasn't just about finding a dog's home. It was the beginning of something far deeper, something that neither he nor the dog could yet understand. The rain had slowed to a mist by the time Keanu's headlights washed over the crooked wooden sign at the edge of a narrow dirt road. He squinted, wiping a patch of condensation from the inside of the windshield. The road name matched the partial address etched onto the dog's broken tag. His heart thudded once, soft but certain. He turned off the highway and followed the unpaved trail as it curved through a stretch of silent fields, long grass bending under the fading drizzle. The world seemed to hold its breath again, wrapped in fog and silence. The only sound was the crunch of gravel beneath the Mustang's tires and the soft whimper of the dog, now lying on the passenger seat, eyes half open but alert. Keanu glanced at him. "Almost there, Rusty," he said quietly, trying the name aloud as if speaking it into existence. The dog's ears perked faintly, and for the first time, Keanu saw a flicker of life behind those tired eyes. A few minutes later, the beam of his headlights touched something in the distance, a sagging porch, a rusted swing creaking from a single chain, and the skeletal outline of an old farmhouse that looked like it hadn't seen laughter in years. The paint had peeled to the color of ash, and every window seemed heavy with the weight of time. Keanu parked, killed the engine, and sat still for a moment. The house didn't just look empty, it felt hollow, like it carried the echo of something lost. He stepped out into the damp night, pulling his jacket tight. The faint smell of wet earth and wood rot filled the air. As he approached the porch, the boards groaned beneath his boots. He hesitated, listening. Somewhere inside, a floorboard creaked, a soft, uncertain sound. He raised a hand and knocked. Once, twice. Silence. Then, faintly, the door cracked open. A small face peeked through, the face of a boy, maybe 10 or 11, his eyes wide and wary. He wore a sweater too big for him, sleeves hanging past his fingers, and his voice came out small and trembling. "Who are you?" he asked. Keanu knelt slightly, softening his tone. "Hey there. I found your dog out on the road. Thought maybe he belonged here." He tilted his head toward the car where the dog, Rusty, was watching from the window, tail thumping weakly. The boy's eyes widened, and for a heartbeat, something bright broke through his guarded expression. "Rusty," he whispered, stepping out onto the porch. But then his excitement faltered as he looked back over his shoulder, deeper into the house, as if waiting for permission that never came. The door opened wider, and a woman appeared behind the boy. Her hair was tied back hastily, her face pale, drawn. The kind of face that had forgotten how to smile but remembered how to endure. "Can I help you?" she asked, voice cautious but polite. Keanu gave a small nod. "Ma'am, I found your dog wandering near Highway 6. Thought I'd bring him back." She blinked, then pressed a hand to her mouth. "We thought he was gone," she murmured, eyes glistening. She hurried down the steps, the boy close behind, and when Rusty saw them, the dog gave a soft bark, weak but full of recognition. The boy ran the last few steps, kneeling beside the animal, wrapping his arms around its neck. "You came back," he whispered. Keanu stood there quietly, the scene stirring something inside him, an ache both tender and raw. The woman looked up at him, voice trembling with gratitude. "Thank you, mister." "Keanu," he said simply, offering a faint smile. "Just Keanu." She nodded slowly, still petting Rusty's matted fur. "I don't know how to thank you. Things have been difficult lately." Her words trailed off, lost somewhere between apology and exhaustion. Keanu's gaze drifted to the house. Through the open doorway, he caught glimpses of peeling wallpaper, an unlit fireplace, a single lamp casting a tired glow. The silence inside wasn't peaceful, it was heavy, suffocating, as though the air itself carried grief. "He must have run off looking for someone," she said softly. "My husband used to walk him every evening. But he's been gone for a while now." She tried to make her voice steady, but the tremor betrayed her. The boy looked up, eyes dark with confusion and hurt. Keanu understood without needing to ask. For a long moment, no one spoke. The rain had stopped completely now, leaving the air damp and still. The dog leaned against the boy's legs, as if grounding him. Keanu looked down, his voice low. "Maybe he was trying to find his way home," he said. The woman nodded faintly, wiping at her eyes. "Maybe." Then, almost as if embarrassed by her own vulnerability, she straightened. "Would you like to come in? You've been out in the rain." He hesitated, then nodded. Inside, the air was cool and smelled faintly of dust and old wood. A single photograph sat on the mantel, a family portrait taken years ago. The man in the picture had kind eyes and an easy smile. The same eyes the boy had. Keanu stood near the doorway as the woman poured him a cup of coffee, her hands shaking slightly. "It's not much," she said quietly, "but it's warm." He accepted it with a nod, glancing around the dimly lit room. The furniture was worn but cared for. There was love here once. Still was, buried under layers of loss. The boy sat beside Rusty, resting his head on the dog's back, as though afraid to let go. Keanu took a slow sip, then met the woman's tired gaze. "I'm glad he found his way home," he said. She gave a small, weary smile. "So am I." But as her eyes drifted to the empty chair by the fireplace, the one that still faced the door, Keanu saw it clearly. This home wasn't just missing a man. It was missing light. Outside, the night deepened, and the wind brushed softly against the windows. Keanu set down his cup, feeling that familiar tug in his chest, that quiet, stubborn voice that never let him walk away when something wasn't right. He looked at the boy, the mother, and the dog curled up between them. Somehow, this didn't feel like an ending. It felt like the beginning of something he hadn't yet understood. He didn't know it then, but returning the lost dog had set in motion something much greater. A chain of moments that would soon pull him into the heart of this family's hidden pain. And as he glanced once more at the photograph on the mantel, the firelight flickering across the smiling faces, a thought whispered through his mind like a secret carried on the wind. Sometimes, fate hides behind small acts of kindness. Morning broke slowly over the valley, pale light spilling through gray clouds and tracing soft lines across the worn floorboards of the farmhouse. Keanu had spent the night on the old couch by the fireplace, the faint crackle of dying embers whispering through the silence. Rusty lay curled at his feet, breathing steadily, finally at peace. The scent of rain still hung in the air, mingled with the faint aroma of coffee drifting from the kitchen. Keanu stirred, sitting up as he heard quiet footsteps padding across the floor. The boy, Eli, peeked into the living room, clutching a small tin cup in both hands. "Mom said you might want some breakfast," he said shyly. His voice was soft, uncertain, but polite in that way children are when they've learned early to measure the world carefully. Keanu smiled gently, his voice low and warm. "Thank you, kiddo." He took the cup and nodded toward Rusty. He slept all night. Eli knelt to pet the dog, eyes bright with affection. He used to sleep right there, by the fire. Dad always said Rusty liked the warmth. The mention of his father's name slipped out like an accident, and the boy's voice caught just slightly at the end. Keanu noticed but didn't press. He simply watched the child for a moment. The way his small hands moved with practiced care, the way his eyes seemed older than they should be. "Your dad sounds like he loved this place," Keanu said quietly. Eli nodded. He did. He built the fence, the porch, even that swing outside. He pointed toward the window, where the rusted swing swayed gently in the breeze. But when he lost his job, everything changed. He said he'd fix things. Then one day, he just didn't come back. The words lingered in the air, heavy and fragile. Keanu looked down at the cup in his hands, feeling the weight of silence stretch between them. He knew that silence well, the kind that comes after loss, when the world keeps moving but your heart refuses to. "I'm sorry, Eli," he said softly. The boy shrugged in that way children do when pain has become a part of them. "Mom says he's trying to find work somewhere, but she doesn't really believe that." His eyes flicked toward the hallway where his mother was moving quietly, her steps careful, measured, like someone walking on the edges of grief. Keanu followed his gaze and then looked back at the boy. "Sometimes," he said gently, "people get lost for a while. Doesn't mean they stop loving you." The boy nodded slowly, not entirely convinced but comforted enough to smile faintly. Later that morning, Keanu helped fix a broken shutter that had been banging all night against the side of the house. He found tools in a rusted box by the shed, old, worn, but serviceable. The wood was soft with rot, the nails bent, but he worked quietly, focused. The mother, Lena, watched from the porch, her arms folded tightly across her chest. "You don't have to do that," she said after a while. Keanu looked over his shoulder, wiping rain from his forehead. "I know, but it's nice to do something that stays fixed." A hint of surprise crossed her face, the faintest flicker of gratitude beneath the fatigue. "You really don't have to stay, Mr. Reeves," she said again, softer this time. He straightened, meeting her gaze. "It's Keanu," he corrected gently. "And maybe I'm not staying. Maybe I'm just not done yet." They ate lunch together at the small wooden table inside, soup and bread, humble but warm. The sound of spoons against bowls echoed through the quiet room. Keanu noticed the walls lined with family photos, birthdays, Christmases, laughter frozen in time. The last one showed Lena, her husband, and Eli standing by a freshly painted fence, Rusty wagging his tail in the foreground. Everyone looked alive in that picture. He studied it for a moment, then asked softly, "When did he leave?" Lena paused, her spoon hovering midair. "About 4 months ago. He took his old truck and said he'd be back by the weekend. We haven't heard from him since." Her voice didn't tremble this time. It had moved beyond breaking. It was just tired. "Sheriff said he might have gone to the city looking for work. But I know my husband. He wouldn't just vanish." Keanu set down his spoon. "You think something happened to him?" She met his eyes for the first time in full, and there was something there, a mix of fear and certainty. "I think he was trying to protect us from something. He started acting strange before he left. Always checking the windows, staying up late, making calls outside." Her gaze dropped, and then one night, Rusty started barking like crazy. My husband yelled for him to be quiet. The next morning, they were both gone. The words hit Keanu like a slow wave. He looked toward Rusty, who had lifted his head, ears twitching as if the memory itself stirred him. The dog whimpered softly, then padded to the door, pressing his nose against the wood. Outside, the wind picked up again, carrying the faint scent of pine and wet soil. Keanu stood, walking to the door, and crouched beside Rusty. "You trying to tell me something, boy?" he whispered. The dog's tail gave a single slow wag, eyes fixed on the woods beyond the field. Keanu glanced back at Lena. "Where does that path lead?" She hesitated, then said, "Into the forest. My husband used to go hunting there sometimes. He said it helped him think." Keanu nodded, a spark of intuition flickering in his chest. "Maybe it's time we take a walk," he murmured, looking at Rusty. The dog's ears perked as if he understood. As the afternoon light dimmed, Keanu helped Lena patch a leaking pipe under the sink. The small acts of repair filled the silence between them, two souls quietly mending what they could, each in their own way. Eli sat by the fire, drawing Rusty on a piece of paper, tongue poking from the corner of his mouth in concentration. When Keanu straightened, stretching his back, he caught Lena watching him, not with suspicion anymore, but with quiet gratitude. "I don't know why you stopped that night," she said softly. "Most people wouldn't have." Keanu's gaze softened. "Maybe I was meant to." That night, as darkness gathered once more around the farmhouse, Keanu sat outside on the porch, Rusty's head resting against his knee. The stars were hidden behind clouds, and the air carried a chill that seeped into his bones. Inside, he could hear Lena humming softly as she tucked Eli into bed. The tune was fragile, like an echo from another life. Keanu closed his eyes, feeling the weight of the night settle over him. In the stillness, the world seemed to whisper, not in words, but in a feeling. The kind that told him this wasn't coincidence. The dog, the road, the family, they were threads of the same story, leading him somewhere he didn't yet understand. And as Rusty lifted his head and stared toward the shadowed woods, Keanu followed his gaze, a thought taking shape in the quiet of his heart. Some ghosts don't haunt places, they haunt the living who can't yet let go. The night came softly, wrapping the valley in a quilt of mist and silence. The farmhouse lights flickered dimly, like small beacons of defiance against the encroaching darkness. Keanu stood by the porch rail, one hand tucked into his coat pocket, the other gently resting on Rusty's head. The dog had grown restless since sunset, pacing near the door, ears twitching at sounds only he could hear. The forest beyond the fields stood like a dark wall, tall pines and bare oaks swaying slightly, their silhouettes breathing secrets into the wind. Keanu's eyes followed the tree line. Something in that darkness called to him. It wasn't fear. It was invitation. He took a breath, his voice low. "You want to show me something, don't you, boy?" Rusty whined softly, tail flicking, eyes fixed toward the woods. The sound was more than a whimper. It was insistence. Inside, Lena was tucking Eli into bed when she noticed Keanu putting on his jacket. "Where are you going?" she asked, concern etched into her voice. Keanu paused by the doorway. "Rusty's been uneasy all night. I think he's trying to lead me somewhere." Her brow furrowed. "It's dangerous out there after dark. The ground's uneven, and the forest goes on for miles." Keanu offered a faint, reassuring smile. I won't go far. I just want to see what he's looking for. Lena hesitated, gripping the edge of the doorframe as if torn between hope and fear. If you find anything, anything at all. Her voice trailed off, the unfinished plea hanging heavy in the air. Keanu gave a small nod. I'll bring him home. She didn't ask which him he meant, her husband or the truth. Maybe she already knew both were the same. The forest swallowed them within minutes. The air grew colder, damper, the scent of pine and earth thick around them. Rusty trotted ahead, stopping every few feet to glance back, as if to make sure Keanu was following. The moonlight filtered through the canopy in thin silver veins, painting the undergrowth with ghostly light. Branches cracked softly underfoot. Somewhere in the distance, an owl called once, then fell silent. The deeper they went, the more the stillness pressed in, a silence that seemed to listen. Keanu's boots sank into the soft earth, each step measured, steady. His breath came out in slow clouds, mingling with the mist. Then, suddenly, Rusty stopped. The dog's body stiffened, ears forward, nose twitching. He gave a low, cautious growl. Keanu followed the direction of Rusty's gaze. Between two trees, half hidden by tangled vines, was the faint glimmer of metal, the rusted corner of an old pickup truck. He stepped closer, pushing branches aside. The sight hit him with the weight of sudden stillness. The truck was partially buried in mud, its windshield shattered, its doors left ajar. It looked as though it had skidded off a narrow path and crashed weeks, maybe months ago. Rusty whined, circling the vehicle, sniffing frantically. Keanu's pulse quickened. He pulled out his flashlight, the beam cutting through the gloom. "Hello," he called softly. No answer, only the hush of wind through the trees. He shone the light through the broken window. Inside, the seats were torn, the dashboard cracked, and there, in the passenger seat, a faded flannel jacket hung loosely, covered in dirt and rain. Keanu's throat tightened. He recognized that jacket from a photograph above the farmhouse fireplace. The man's smile, the same pattern, the same color. His breath caught, and he crouched low, brushing away leaves and mud from the driver's side. That's when he heard it, faint but unmistakable, a sound like a weak cough from somewhere nearby. He froze. Rusty's head snapped toward the sound, ears perked. Without thinking, Keanu turned off the flashlight and listened. There it was again, a rough, broken sound, just beyond a cluster of trees. He moved toward it, heart pounding, until the beam of moonlight fell upon a figure slumped against a fallen log. A man, thin, gaunt, his clothes tattered, skin pale beneath layers of grime. His eyes blinked weakly as Keanu knelt beside him. "Hey," Keanu said softly, voice steady but urgent. "Can you hear me?" The man stirred, lips trembling. "Rusty," he rasped. The dog whimpered, pressing close, nuzzling the man's arm. The man let out a broken sound, half sob, half relief, and his shaking hand rested on the dog's head. "You found me," he whispered. Keanu felt his chest tighten. "You're his father," he said quietly. The man's eyes fluttered open, unfocused but alive. I tried to go back," he murmured. "I was scared. I lost control of the truck, the radio, the calls. Someone was watching." His words dissolved into coughs. Keanu steadied him, offering the water bottle he'd brought along. "Easy. You're okay now. We'll get you home." But the man shook his head weakly. "No, you don't understand. They came after me. For what I found." The words faded, his head lolling back against the log. Keanu's instincts kicked in. He tore part of his sleeve to wrap around a bleeding cut on the man's arm. "You're safe now," he said firmly. "Whatever happened, we'll figure it out." Rusty barked softly, tail thumping weakly as if urging his owner to hold on. Keanu lifted the man's arm over his shoulder, helping him to stand. The man's legs trembled but held just enough. "It's not far," Keanu murmured, guiding him carefully back toward the path. The journey was slow, every step deliberate. The forest seemed to lean closer around them, whispering secrets through the branches. By the time they broke through the last line of trees, dawn was already brushing the sky with the faintest hint of gray. When the farmhouse came into view, Lena was standing on the porch, a lantern in hand, her eyes wide with disbelief. the moment she saw them. Her husband limping weakly beside Keanu, supported by his arm, the lantern slipped from her grasp and shattered on the ground. She ran forward, tears breaking free as she reached him, her voice cracking. "Ethan," she whispered, her hands trembling as they touched his face. He managed a faint smile. "Hey, Lenny," he croaked. "Told you I'd come home." She clung to him, sobbing softly, and for a moment, all the pain, all the waiting, seemed to dissolve into the cold morning light. Keanu stood a few steps back, silent, the exhaustion of the night settling into his bones. Rusty leaned against his leg, tail wagging slowly, his job finally done. As the sun crept over the horizon, painting the fields in gold, Keanu watched the family embrace, broken pieces slowly finding their way back together. But even as relief filled the air, something in Ethan's words echoed in his mind. "They came after me, for what I found." There was more to this story, something still buried in the shadows of the forest. But for now, he let the moment breathe. The dog's soft bark pulled him back to the present, and Keanu smiled faintly. "You did good, Rusty," he whispered. The dog pressed closer, eyes bright in the morning light. As the warmth of dawn spread over the land, Keanu knew this wasn't the end, just a pause before the truth revealed itself completely. Morning broke gently over the horizon, spilling pale gold across the forest canopy. Dew clung to the leaves, shimmering like tears caught in sunlight. The storm from the night before had washed the world clean, leaving the air sharp, fresh, and heavy with the scent of pine. Keanu sat beside the remains of the fire, his jacket draped over the sleeping dog, Rusty, whose chest rose and fell in peaceful rhythm. The forest was quiet now, the kind of quiet that doesn't demand anything, a quiet earned after chaos. Keanu watched the light shift across the trees, his mind still replaying the night's revelations. The hidden room, the buried letters, the truth about the family, and the child they lost. Rusty wasn't just a stray, he was a remnant of love left behind, a silent guardian who had somehow endured the decay of time and sorrow. He rose slowly, his muscles aching from exhaustion, but his spirit steady. The air was cool against his skin as he walked toward the old cabin that now stood bathed in morning light. It looked different in daylight, less haunted, more human. The boards still creaked, the roof still sagged, but there was warmth where there had once been shadows. Inside, the remnants of the family's life told stories of joy and grief. He picked up one of the old photographs from the table, a young couple and their little girl, holding a small puppy between them. Rusty. The same soulful eyes, the same markings. Keanu's throat tightened. The back of the photo had a note written in delicate handwriting. Asterisk, no matter where you go, you'll find your way home. Asterisk, the simplicity of the words struck him deeply. It was as if the universe had sent this moment, this dog, to remind him that some forms of love never fade, they just find new places to exist. Rusty stirred, his tail wagging faintly as Keanu knelt beside him. "Looks like you've been guarding this place a long time," Keanu said softly, scratching behind the dog's ear. Rusty's eyes met his, calm now, almost grateful. In that silent exchange, Keanu felt something shift within himself. 4 years, he had carried the weight of loss. Friends gone too soon, love stories that never had a chance to bloom, days when fame felt like a burden instead of a gift. But now, sitting in the ruins of someone else's story, he realized something profound. Pain isn't meant to be buried. It's meant to be shared, transformed, turned into something that breathes again. The light returning to Rusty's eyes mirrored the one flickering back to life in his own. He stepped outside, inhaling the scent of wet earth and cedar. A distant bird call echoed across the valley, hopeful, unbroken. Keanu turned toward the dirt road, the same one he had driven down just hours ago in darkness. Now it stretched before him like a promise, lined with the first rays of dawn. He carried Rusty to the car, placing him gently on the seat where it all began. The dog rested his head on Keanu's arm, eyes heavy but content. "We'll find them," Keanu murmured, "or at least what's left of them." The smudged address on the dog's tag had led him here, but now he knew it wasn't just about the past. It was about closure, for both man and beast. He would track down the family's surviving relatives, tell them what he found, and let Rusty finally rest where he belonged. Maybe even bring new beginnings to the ones left behind. As the engine rumbled to life, Keanu took one last look at the cabin. Sunlight filtered through the broken roof, landing on the doorway like a benediction. It was no longer an abandoned house. It was a resting place, a testament to love's endurance. He smiled faintly, his reflection in the rearview mirror softened by light and time. Rusty let out a quiet sigh, curling up as the car rolled down the gravel road. The forest opened up before them, green and alive, the darkness finally lifting. In the quiet hum of the tires against the earth, Keanu felt something he hadn't in a long while. Peace. Real, tangible peace. Not the kind found in fame or solitude, but in the simple act of doing what's right, of following the smallest cry into the heart of the unknown. By the time they reached the main road, the sun had fully risen, flooding the world with gold. The dog lifted his head, gazing out the window, ears perked as if recognizing the world again. Keanu chuckled softly. "Yeah, buddy. The light's back." The words weren't just for Rusty, they were for himself, too. For all the pieces of his soul that had been scattered by time and loss, now quietly finding their way home. He pressed his foot to the gas, the open road stretching ahead, endless, alive, filled with stories yet to unfold. And somewhere deep in that road's hum, in the steady heartbeat of the engine, the world whispered back to him, "Sometimes, the ones we save are the ones who save us."